Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, in Mufti Menk's book here, Motivational Moments, Book 1, there's a quote here I'd like to share with you. Almighty, we're living in trying times, Bismillah. Strengthen our faith and protect us, help us keep good company, and guide us towards useful knowledge. So, notice this: good company, useful knowledge. Now, good company can be quite difficult when you're living in a pretty precarious neighborhood. So, let's say you're in a classic trailer park in America where there's lots of meth, people who are pretty sketchy. That can be quite difficult. Not to stereotype all trailer parks, but we can't pretend that there are certain stereotypes that don't reign true, right? Not to say that there isn't mischievous and pernicious elements in the affluent neighborhoods. They're more hidden, no doubt. But violent crime is more common in certain communities. For example, there's also lots of alcoholism and property crime on the native reservations. I was looking at that data the other day. So if you're running into more trouble, keeping good company can be hard and almost seem impossible. Sometimes it's better to keep to yourself. And that can be difficult when you want to be social, especially in public school and even private school. You want to have some friends, but at times you can begin to notice that your classmates, schoolmates, essentially, some of them are on their way to the fast life and you have to kind of pull back. I can think of examples in my own high school years where it would have been better if I had not associated with those people, and having them around caused more harm than good, and I wasn't smart enough to see it, because you frame it as they're cool, they're popular, they're the it crowd, so you want to be rubbing shoulders with those types because you don't want to be the outcast or the awkward one. Now, though, that I'm older, hindsight's 2020, I can pass that knowledge on to my children and let them know, like, high school isn't forever. Being popular in high school doesn't actually matter at all. That's not a real thing that's going to carry off into the job market. People move way easier now, so it's about surviving your school and having some memorable experiences, but being the super popular one, there's no real benefit to that. And people often forget their classmates, so what's going on here? You see what I'm saying? So remind yourself and your children of that. And in places where there's lots of gangs, those people can seem to be like the it crowd. There was this show I watched on Netflix, movie rather, called The Kitchen, and this young lad was almost getting involved with a more rowdy crowd, and you should be careful. It's a good example of, be careful of the company you keep. They'll drag you down, right? If you look at the manosphere influencers, they're always fighting, backstabbing each other. When they had the Kanye West song, of the Heil H song, they all were throwing each other under the bus and attacking one another on who played it, who's this. It doesn't work. You have to be so careful who you associate with, because when it becomes convenient, they'll throw you under the bus and they'll use you for clout. Whether they use each other for clout, but they're not real friends, which is bad company. Why associate with people who are not seeking actual genuine friendship, but rather they're just networking for their career? Something to do some introspection on. Now, useful knowledge. This one is interesting because I like truth seeking, I like knowledge seeking. Islamic knowledge is useful knowledge. Another thing, though, is information about, like, how do you be the best renter? Should you lease a car? Or should you buy a car? Looking at car reviews and learning about certain vehicles before you buy them. You can explore knowledge of bushcraft survival stuff, plant medicine. There's so much we have to learn. And if, let's say, for example, you're going to buy a home, look at, what do you need to know before buying a home? There's countless genres, niches, and whatnot that are going to benefit us legally, financially, spiritually, medically, and we have to explore those options and make sure that we don't just stay in the entertainment realm. I love me some good memes, especially some AI slop. Gobble, gobble, gobble. I be eating that AI slop. So I'm not saying you can't have a moment to laugh, because comedy is cathartic and a form of medicine. And when you're depressed, you can definitely benefit from some good halal comedy, especially if it's super witty. And there's some great people out there doing some funny halal memes, and I think those have some value, especially when they're quite creative and original, and not just vulgar like Amy Schumer, Sarah Silverman, and what's that dude's name? Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, just pure vulgar people. I personally think that they're too vulgar to listen to. You watch Tom Segura's comedy stuff, ugh, so nasty. You feel you want to take a shower after, so that's quite different, right? So I'm not saying you could never have a laugh, but just be cautious. Useful knowledge, as well as livestock raising, even certain legislations being passed in your area that'll impact your zoning laws and whatnot, is essential. Because I've come across now more and more knowledge where I was like, oh, I did not know that. For example, like a tick. There's been a big problem now with ticks. And I think that information is very useful, because we need to do something about the tick problem. And you learn that chickens and possums eat ticks. Maybe we should release some chickens into the forest to eat some of them ticks up, because they're taking down a lot of moose and deer, and even I saw some frogs that had some embedded ticks. It's destroying wildlife. But another thing is that how do you pull them out, with the tweezer? Like, there's tons of info out there on just practical stuff that you're like, huh, interesting. And even there's like some posts about what chemicals not to mix. Don't mix certain cleaners together because they create some type of toxic fume and whatnot. My neighbor scared me. Whew. They slammed their groceries down. Almost gave me a heart attack. But there's useful knowledge in so many different types of topics, and I find that to be great. My orchids kept dying, and I watched some videos on Instagram of why that is, and I was like, oh, I did not know that. And I had been spending not a whole lot of money, because I kind of buy the cheaper ones, but it'll save me money and add beauty to my home now that I know how to better take care of the orchid plants, right? So useful knowledge, having utility, functionality, necessity, lots of dimensions to that. But there's a lot out there to learn, and I've often said we should never stop learning. You should keep learning until you die. Hamza's Den mocked me for that, even when it came to Islam. He pretty much said Muslims don't need to read hadiths, and you know how much I love hadiths. If you don't know, now you know. But again, I like researching things and reading them before talking about them as an authoritative figure. I'm just exploring a certain topic. I'll speak on it before I become a master of it, because in the end we never stop learning and there's always more levels to go. But my point is that knowledge is a lifelong pursuit, and you'd be surprised how much you mature and enjoy life when you start learning more about it. It's quite fascinating. Let me know what you think. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and join the vlog.